There is a house in Clemmons, North Carolina, that once stood as a monument to decay, a place where the sunlight seemed to lose its warmth before it could touch the threshold. This is Dark Reflex. If you find this investigation into the shadows of human nature compelling, please consider subscribing so we can continue to unearth these forgotten, chilling corners of reality. This is not merely a story about a residence. It is a chronicle of a man who chose to shed his own humanity, adopting a name whispered in the dark corners of ancient mythology to shroud his actions in a veil of ritualistic terror. His name was Pazuzu Algarad, and for those who lived near his home, he was a living nightmare, a man who transformed a typical suburban street into a site of unimaginable horror. Long before the police sirens wailed against the night air, the neighbors knew some rot had taken hold, but they could never have anticipated the depths of the depravity hidden behind his boarded-up windows. Pazuzu Algarad was born John Alexander Lawson, a name he discarded as he evolved into a persona that thrived on darkness and repulsion. He saw himself as something other, something beyond the constraints of societal norms and moral codes. He embraced a lifestyle that fetishized the macabre, decorating his home with filth and decay, creating an environment that mirrored his internal state. He was a man of contrasts, articulate yet utterly devoid of empathy, charismatic to those he sought to corrupt and terrifying to those who dared to cross him. He cultivated a circle of drifters and lost souls, individuals who found in him a dark sanctuary where the rules of the outside world no longer applied. They were drawn to the house not by kindness, but by a shared sense of alienation, a collective desire to descend into the abyss that Pazuzu had carved out for them. By the time the authorities finally breached the perimeter of his home, the smell of stagnation was so profound it seeped into the very fibers of their uniforms. They were not just investigating a crime scene, they were stepping into an altar of wreckage. The house was filled with the remnants of a life lived in total defiance of basic hygiene and moral order. Every room was a testament to his descent, with walls covered not in paint, but in layers of grime and occult symbols that hinted at a mind obsessed with the darker manifestations of spiritual power. It was here in this suffocating atmosphere that Pazuzu exerted his influence over everyone who entered his orbit. He was the architect of their misery, a man who thrived on watching others degrade themselves to suit his twisted vision of reality. The investigation into Pazuzu Algarad officially shifted from a nuisance complaint to a homicide inquiry when the truth of the backyard began to surface. It was not a garden in any traditional sense, but a burial ground for human history, a repository for the secrets he could never allow to see the light of day. When the investigators began to dig, they found the remains, cold and silent, buried beneath the very earth where he had once stood, and cursed the sun. These victims, Joshua Frederick Wetzler and Tommy Dean Welch, were not merely casual acquaintances. They were people caught in the gravitational pull of Pazuzu, individuals who thought they had found a friend only to find a predator. Their deaths were not accidents, but the culmination of a dark, calculated control that Pazuzu exercised over the lives of those around him. The psychological profile of Pazuzu Algarad remains a subject of intense academic fascination, a study in how a personality can completely detach from societal reality to create its own self-serving mythology. He did not act alone in his madness, but he was undoubtedly the epicenter, the heartbeat of the rot. He manipulated his companions, including his girlfriend at the time, Amber Burch, into becoming accomplices to his dark designs. It is a terrifying realization that someone could possess such a profound level of persuasive influence, that others would participate in the desecration of human life, seemingly under a spell of his making. This was not a cult in the traditional religious sense. It was a cult of personality, built on the shifting sands of fear, drug use, and a shared rejection of the world that had cast them aside. The court proceedings that followed the discovery of the bodies revealed a man who was seemingly unfazed by the gravity of his actions. Even in the face of insurmountable evidence, Pazuzu maintained an aura of detachment, a performance that chilled the observers in the courtroom. He spoke with a chilling calm, a testament to his absolute lack of remorse. His legal saga was short-lived, however, as the darkness he had cultivated for so long eventually claimed him from within, before he could stand trial for the full scope of his atrocities. He took his own life behind bars, a final, cowardly act that denied his victims the closure of a full legal accounting. His death, however, did not answer the questions that remain hanging in the stale air of that Clemmons house. Why did he choose this path? How did he manage to exert such profound control over those around him? And what deep, fractured reality led him to believe that he was the vessel for a demonic entity? We often look for monsters in fairy tales or cinematic portrayals, but the story of Pazuzu Algarad serves as a grim reminder that the most dangerous entities are those that walk among us, masked by human skin and mundane surroundings. He was a warning flare in the dark, a manifestation of the potential for absolute apathy and cruelty residing within the human psyche. The house, which has since been demolished, leaving nothing but a vacant lot where the ground once hid his secrets, serves as a silent witness to his existence. The neighborhood has moved on, the trees have grown back, and the horror of those years is fading into the blurry archives of local lore. But the questions linger like dust in an abandoned room. We must reflect on the dynamics of influence that allowed such a man to operate with such impunity for so long. Was it the culture of isolation that fostered his growth? Was it the failure of a community to recognize the signs of a predator until it was far too late? These are the uncomfortable truths we must face if we are to understand the nature of the evil that Pazuzu Algarad represented. He was not a supernatural force, as he tried so desperately to claim in his manic writings and public outbursts. He was a man who understood how to exploit the vulnerabilities of others, creating a vacuum of morality that he filled with his own dark design. The loss of life in that house remains a tragedy, a sorrowful marking of the limits of human darkness. The mystery of his life remains, not because his actions remain unknown, but because the source of his malice is so difficult to reconcile with our understanding of sentient humanity. We search for logic in his actions, for a point of origin where John Alexander Lawson ceased to be and Pazuzu Algarad emerged. But the transition was fluid, a slow erosion of the spirit that took years to complete. He stripped away everything that made him human, bit by bit, until there was nothing left but this empty, hollowed-out shell. A creature of habit and violence who found purpose only in the destruction of others. To look at his life is to stare into a mirror that reflects the worst possibilities of free will. His accomplices in the house, those who watched and helped, remain as haunting as his own memory. What were they thinking as they walked back and forth over the graves of their friends? Did they ever feel the weight of what they were doing, or had they been so thoroughly hollowed out by his presence that they no longer possessed the capacity to feel? The tragedy is compounded by their presence, a reminder that evil is often contagious, spread by proximity and a shared descent into madness. They were not just victims of his persuasion, they were active participants in the erasure of human dignity that took place within those walls. As we conclude this investigation into the dark legacy of the man who called himself Pazuzu, we are left with a lingering sensation of unease. It is the realization that the line between a normal life and a descent into such profound darkness is thinner than we would like to believe. The house in Clemmons is gone, but the echo of what occurred there serves as a permanent footnote in the history of human discord. We continue to ask ourselves how a human being can drift so far from the shores of morality that they embrace the night as their only home. Pazuzu Algarad did not just exist, He was a symptom of a malaise that occasionally flares up in our society when the connections between people are severed and the darkness is allowed to settle. In the final account, we are left with a story of a man who sought to define his own reality, only to be consumed by it. He tried to project an image of power, of demonic influence, yet he died in the cold, unfeeling environment of a prison cell, alone and stripped of the persona he had spent years crafting. There was no grand exit, no final confrontation with the forces he claimed to serve. There was only the silence that follows a long and terrible struggle. For those still living with the scars of his existence, the story does not end with the demolition of the house or the death of the perpetrator. It continues in the memories of the families, the neighbors who still look at the empty lot with a sense of dread, and the investigators who will carry the weight of what they found under that soil for the rest of their lives. Perhaps the most important lesson to extract from this bleak narrative is the importance of awareness. We must remain vigilant, not only for the sake of our own safety, but for the health of our communities. The rot that Pazuzu Algarad introduced to that neighborhood did not appear overnight. It began in small increments, in the way he treated his environment, in the way he surrounded himself with the unstable, and in the way he cultivated an atmosphere of exclusion and fear. If we are to prevent the emergence of such figures in the future, we must look closer at the signs, even when they are obscured by the mundane. We must ask the questions that make us uncomfortable before the situation grows beyond our ability to intervene. The narrative of this case is not just about the horror, but about the resilience of the truth. Despite his attempts to bury his actions, to hide his crimes beneath the earth and behind the wall of his own manufactured mythology, the truth found its way out. The secrets of the backyard were eventually unearthed, and the reality of his life was made public, stripping away the mystery he had used to protect himself. This is the nature of darkness. It feeds on concealment, and it withers when exposed to the light of factual investigation. By telling this story, we ensure that the victims are not forgotten, and that the tragedy of their existence, and his, is properly documented for a world that often prefers to look away from the ugly, uncomfortable facts of our shared history. We look back at this case as a piece of an ongoing puzzle regarding the darker corridors of the human experience. Pazuzu Algarad was a man of his time and a man of his own making, a figure who serves as a chilling case study for those who study the psychological underpinnings of extreme behavior. He was a person who took the concept of self-destruction and weaponized it against everyone he touched. As we move forward, we carry these lessons with us, not with the intention of glorifying the horror, but with the intent of understanding the mechanics of such events so that we may better recognize the patterns of the past. The mystery of the house on the street in Clemmons may be solved in terms of the facts and the timeline, but the psychological mystery of how a human being arrives at the threshold of such absolute emptiness is a question that may never be fully answered. It is rare to find a story that encapsulates so many elements of the dark documentary niche: the elements of the occult, the reality of human violence, the influence of a charismatic yet damaged personality, and the eventual decay of an entire social circle. This is why we return to these stories, not to celebrate the violence, but to explore the boundaries of the human experience and to understand what happens when those boundaries are completely ignored. The legacy of Pazuzu Algarad is a reminder of the fragility of the societal contract and the catastrophic consequences when that contract is unilaterally shredded by a single individual driven by hatred and a distorted sense of purpose. As this investigation draws to a close, we invite you to reflect on what you have heard. Consider the environment that allowed this to happen, the social isolation that acted as an incubator for his actions, and the finality of the tragedy that claimed so many lives. It is a heavy story, one that demands a level of solemnity and a recognition of the victims whose lives were cut short by the hand of a man who believed himself to be something more than human. The House of Bones is a memory now, a vacant space in the landscape of North Carolina. But the impact of those events is a permanent part of the collective consciousness of those who follow these stories of the human condition. We provide this investigation as part of a larger effort to map the dark corners of reality, ensuring that these narratives are told with the precision and the ethical consideration they deserve. If you have found value in this deep dive into the life and end of Pazuzu Algarad, please take a moment to engage with this community. Your support allows Dark Reflex to continue investigating these complex, disturbing, and often overlooked cases. Like, comment, and share this video with those who appreciate the nuance of psychological horror and the importance of uncovering the hidden truths behind the most infamous cases in recent history. Your participation is what keeps the search for truth alive in an ever-shifting digital landscape. The final image we are left with is not of the rituals or the demonic claims, but of the empty earth and the silence that followed. It is a sobering conclusion to a life defined by noise and chaos. Pazuzu Algarad sought to be remembered, to imprint his name onto the archives of history, and in a way he succeeded, though not in the manner he envisioned. He will be remembered not as a powerful mystic, but as a man who lost his way in the darkness and brought everyone he could reach down with him. The mystery of his soul will remain unsolved, locked away in the history books alongside the names of those who have similarly failed to find peace in their own humanity. We leave you now with the quiet contemplation of these events. The shadows have been pushed back, the facts have been laid out, and the narrative of this dark chapter has been brought to its resolution. As we turn our attention toward the next investigation, we carry the weight of these stories, knowing that the truth is often far more disturbing than the fiction we create to fill the gaps. Thank you for joining us in this exploration of the life of Pazuzu Algarad. Stay in the dark with me.